Well, welcome back to our study of 1 Kings. We're going to begin this evening in chapter 5. And Hiram, king of Tyre, sent his servants unto Solomon, for he had heard that they had anointed him king in the room of his father, for Hiram was ever a lover of David.
This is basically just sending diplomats to Solomon, to sort of welcome him as the successor to his David, or to his father David. And, we were looking today, I don't really know, have a lot of detail on the relationship between David and Hiram, but evidently they had somewhat of a close relationship because he says he loved David.
And Solomon sent to Hiram, saying, Thou knowest how that David my father could not build a house unto the name of the Lord his God, for the wars which were about him on every side, until the Lord put them under the soles of his feet.
So in response to, Hiram wishing him well and congratulating him, Solomon sends a message to Hiram and reminds him of how his father David, Solomon's father David, wanted to build a house for God, but he was unable to build that house because the Lord said he was a man of blood, and so he would not allow him to build the temple. However, we do know that David collected materials and had the blueprint. God gave him the blueprint and all for the temple.
But now the Lord my God hath given me rest on every side, so that there is neither adversary nor evil occurrent. And behold, I purpose to build a house unto the name of the Lord my God, as the Lord spake unto David my father, saying, Thy son, whom I will set upon thy throne in thy room, he shall build a house unto my name. Now therefore command thou that they hew me cedar trees out of Lebanon, and my servants shall be with thy servants, and unto thee will I give hire for thy servants according to all that thou shalt appoint. For thou knowest that there is not among us any that can skill to hew timber like unto the Sidonians. And it came to pass, when Hiram heard the words of Solomon, that he rejoiced greatly and said, Blessed be the Lord this day, which hath given unto David a wise son over this great people. And Hiram sent to Solomon, saying, I have considered the things which thou sentest to me for, and I will do all they desire concerning timber of cedar and concerning timber of fir.
So, in response to Solomon's statement and, saying that even though David couldn't build a house, God had promised David that his son would build a house. And David had conquered everything around him, so Solomon is inheriting the kingdom of peace, and so he's a man of peace. So he asked Hiram to give him the materials, basically, to build, as far as the cedar, and Lebanon was renowned for its cedar trees. And when King Hiram gets word of what Solomon's request is, he is elated, so to speak, and he grants his request. He's more than willing. And Solomon, here is a wise man. He recognizes that the Sidonians are very skilled in cutting lumber, and there is a skill to cutting it. There's more to it than cutting down trees. It has to be sawed into usable material, right? And the Sidonians were good at that. So Solomon makes his request, and Hiram honors.
And in verse 9, this is Hiram still speaking. My servant shall bring them down from Lebanon unto the sea, and I will convey them by sea in floats unto the place that thou shalt appoint me. and will cause them to be discharged there. And thou shalt receive them, and thou shalt accomplish my desire in giving food for my household.
So, Hiram says, this is the way we'll do it. I'll get the material to you, to like a port, and then it's up to you to go from there to get the materials on site to where you want them. And then he is impressed that God has given David a son with wisdom and one who has a desire to carry out his father's command. And so he says, all right, I'll take the trees from Lebanon, I'll take them to the sea and transport them to you, and then we'll be looking for something in return for these trees, okay? You provide us food for the household.
So Hiram gave Solomon cedar trees and fir trees according to all his desire.
So he's not withholding whatever's needed. That's what he's giving to him. Actually, the where it says, that translation says fir. It's if you look at the Hebrew, it says cypress. So he's giving him cedar trees and cypress trees as much as Solomon's needs.
And Solomon gave Hiram 20,000 measures of wheat for food to his household, and 20 measures of pure oil. Thus gave Solomon to Hiram year by year.
So in return for this material, Solomon is annually giving Hiram 125,000 bushels of wheat and 1,166 gallons of pressed oil as food for his household. So it's not one-sided, okay?
And the Lord gave Solomon wisdom as he promised him, and there was peace between Hiram and Solomon, and they made a league together.
Okay, let me go back and say that the amounts that I just told you are based on the assumption, and I'm getting this from the dictionary, okay, the Bible dictionary, from the assumption that a core is a dry measure of 6 1/4 bushels, and a core liquid measure equals to 2 baths, and a bath equals 5.83 gallons. That's how we derived at the numbers that I gave you. So we know that God gave Solomon wisdom just like God promised him, didn't he? God's always good for his word.
He is.
There's peace now, not only between David and Hiram, but there's also peace between Solomon and Hiram.
And King Solomon raised a levy out of all Israel, and the levy was 30,000 men.
And let me say this before I get to that verse. Tyre and Sidon that's not territory of Israel, okay? They're major seaport cities, okay? And so they had a good working relationship with Israel, but they're Sidonians, okay? And so Solomon organized a labor force of 30,000 men who were sent to Lebanon to assist the Sidonians in getting this lumber. Pretty good crew, isn't it?
Yes. And he sent them to Lebanon 10,000 a month by courses. A month they were in Lebanon, and 2 months at home. And Adoniram was over the levy.
So this labor force was divided into 3 work groups. 10,000 men were assigned to each group, and the men would work in Lebanon for 1 month and then return home for 2 months. And Adoniram was the one who was in charge of the labor force.
And Solomon had 70,000 that bear burdens, and 80,000 hewers in the mountains.
So he assigned 70,000 to carry burdens and 80,000 to quarry stones from the mountains.
Besides the chief of Solomon's officers, which were over the work, 3,300 which ruled over the people that wrought in the work.
So his supervisors, these guys that are overseeing the 150,000 laborers, are 3,300. So he has 3,300 supervisors looking after 150,000 laborers.
Wow.
Pretty big workforce, wouldn't you say?
Yeah. And the king commanded, and they brought great stones, costly stones, and huge stones to lay the foundation of the house.
So this labor force was responsible for producing large, expensive stones and preparing timber and stones for use in construction of the temple. Now, what's interesting about this is everything is precise before it's brought on site. And you imagine working with stones and cutting, the chiseling, whatever. All these things are precise to where it says no hammer, and I think we'll read this later on, and no iron tool was heard as they were putting that temple in place. Okay.
And Solomon's builders and Hiram's builders did hew them, and the stone squarers, so they prepared timber and stones to build the house.
So what you have is Solomon's laborers, you have Hiram's laborers, and the Gibeonites who quarried stones and prepared the timber to use in construction of the temple.
Chapter 6, and it came to pass in the 418th year after the children of Israel were come out of the land of Egypt, in the 4th year of Solomon's reign over Israel, in the month Ziph, which is the 2nd month, that he began to build the house of the Lord.
So 480 years after the Israelites come out of Egypt, that's when Solomon began building the temple. And it gives you this information that was in the 4th year of Solomon's reign. And it was in the month Zib, which was the 2nd month. So the 2nd month of the 4th year of Solomon's reign, which was 480 years after the Israelites came out of Egypt, they began with the temple, building the temple.
And the house which King Solomon built for the Lord, the length thereof was 80 cubits, and the breadth thereof 20 cubits, and the height thereof 30 cubits.
So the dimensions of the temple was 90 feet long, 30 feet wide, and 45 feet high.
That's massive.
That's a pretty good sized building.
And the porch before the temple of the house, 20 cubits was the length thereof, according to the breadth of the house, and 10 cubits was the breadth thereof before the house.
So this appears to be something like a vestibule or whatever is in front of the sanctuary. It's 30 feet wide and it's 15 feet deep.
And for the house he made windows of narrow lights.
Now, to try to go in and understand all this, it took great effort, okay? But it appears to me what he's saying is the opening of the windows of the temple were flared. Okay?
Okay. Oh, through the stones. I got it. Okay. Verse 4. And for the house he made verse 5. And against the wall of the house he built chambers round about, against the walls of the house round about, both of the temple and of the oracle, and he made chambers round about.
So there was rooms built all around the walls of the temple. There was a wall surrounding the temple, okay, and in this wall was rooms, and including in the sides and the rear of the building. Now, if you think about this, the priests who are going to be taking care of that, the Levites, that they have sectional duty, okay? They have to have somewhere to stay while they're on duty, and that's the purpose of all this.
The nethermost chamber was 5 cubits broad, and the middle was 6 cubits broad, and the third was 7 cubits broad. For without in the wall of the house he made narrowed rests round about, that the beams should not be fastened in the walls of the house.
So the rooms were, there's 3 stories, and the rooms on the first level were 7.5 feet wide. And on the second level, they're 9 feet wide. And on the third level is 10.5 feet wide. Now, how they're numbering these levels as to whether they're going from the top being 1 and down, or from the bottom being 1 is going to depend. But my guess is you recess to get access to your next level. I'll let you guys figure all that out, okay? And then you read Ezekiel, and then you try to figure that temple out, because it says something to the same effect. But if I understand it correctly, we're like this and like this, right? Otherwise, it'd be a little awkward the other way, wouldn't it? The hard part about the Hebrew language is unlike the English language, to where we have a consistency, to where we read in a continuity. It's not that way at all with the Hebrew language. You may have a word here, and then, 5 or 6 words later, another word, and you have to rearrange that to where it actually makes sense. You have to get in there to appreciate all that, okay? And be ready for some wearisome study. I got a witness, right? Yeah.
Verse 7. And the house, when it was in building, was built of stone, made ready before it was brought thither, so that there was neither hammer nor axe nor any tool of iron heard in the house while it was in building.
So, we said earlier that all this stuff had to be precise when it's brought on site. Another thing that I failed to mention is the rooms were connected to the walls of the temple by beams that rested on ledges. In other words, when they built the wall, they built a ledge out from the wall to support the beams, rather than sticking the beams into the wall, okay? So the beams are resting on ledges of the wall rather than being inserted into the wall. And these stones were finished at the quarry. Can you imagine building a building that massive and the precision that's involved in that before the materials brought on site? Pretty incredible, isn't it? Mm-hmm. And just think about this. David had the plans for that he gave to Solomon. God had given David the plans for that, the blueprint.
The door for the middle chamber was in the right side of the house, and they went up with winding stairs into the middle chamber, and out of the middle into the third. So,
I'm assuming a spiral when it says winding, so you're going up from one floor to another floor to another floor. So you have to have a landing for those stairs. That's why we were talking about being recessed back. And then you have to have access to the room. And so when you get off of the stairwell, you have to have a walkway to get access into the room, right? Mm-hmm. You've seen the motels or whatever that are laid out in somewhat that order. That's how it appears to me. Okay.
So he built the house and finished it, and covered the house with beams and boards of cedar.
So, after all the stones and everything's put in place, right? Mm-hmm. The structure's erected. Then the temple was covered with beams and boards of cedar. We're talking about roof on it, okay?
Okay. And then he built chambers against all the house 5 cubits high, and they rested on the house with timber of cedar.
So these rooms were built all around the temple, and each room was 7.5 feet high and attached to the main structure with cedar boards. A lot of carpentry work involved down here.
Mm-hmm. And the word of the Lord came to Solomon, saying, Concerning this house which thou art in building, if thou wilt walk in my statutes and execute my judgments and keep all my commandments to walk in them, then I will perform my word with thee, which I spake unto David thy father, and I will dwell among the children of Israel, and will not forsake my people Israel.
So while the temple's in process of being built, God speaks to Solomon, and he reiterates how the importance of walking in the statutes, executing the judgments, and keeping all the commandments that God had spoken, first off in Moses, then through David, and David conveying things. And God said, if you'll do this, then I'll dwell with the children of Israel, and I won't forsake them. Now, you have to understand there's a contingency here. In order for God to stay there and God to dwell among the children of Israel, his name to rest on that temple requires them to obey God. They have to walk in the ways of the Lord. Okay? It's not automatic. This is a thing that we're trying to tell you. So often God will give a word and people say, well, God gave the word and it doesn't matter what I do. God's obligated to his word. No, there's ifs in there. You have to keep up your end of the bargain. And then God certainly is going to do what he says.
So Solomon built the house and finished it. And he built the walls of the house within the boards of cedar, both the floor of the house and the walls of the ceiling, and he covered them on the inside with wood, and covered the floor of the house with planks of fir.
You know, Heather and I were talking about this afternoon, and I told her, I said, I cannot comprehend how elaborate the inside of this thing was, or the complex itself. And the extravagance. God is a very extravagant God, not wasteful, but very extravagant, okay? And so if you think about this, the inside is cedar boards. And I think most of you are familiar with cedar wood and the aroma that comes from cedar wood and the appearance of cedar. Plus, cedar is resistant to rot and insect. So it's a very durable wood, and it's a lightweight wood. And so he has the walls from the floor to the ceiling paneled, if you will, with cedar, and then it covers the floor with cypress planks. And cypress is also resistant to rot and moisture as well, a very durable wood and insect. So you think about this, they're getting pretty good detail, wouldn't you think? In other words, use material, keep the termites out. Use material that are resistant to water and resistant to insect. Use durable materials, plus they have a beautiful appearance to them, cypress as well as the cedar.
And he built 20 cubits on the sides of the house, both the floor and the walls with boards of cedar. He even built them for it within, even for the oracle, even for the most holy place.
So there was a 30-foot room, is the way I would say that, that was built at the rear of the temple. The walls were cedar boards that extended from the floor to the ceiling. This room was designated as the most holy place, or what we would call the Holy of Holies, okay?
And the house, that is, the temple before it, was 40 cubits long.
And so this, in front of this 30-foot room, there is a 60-foot room, and this is called the sanctuary. It's the most holy, the holy place in front of the most holy, or the holiest of all, okay?
And the cedar of the house within was carved with knops and open flowers, all was cedar. There was no stone seen.
So this thing's completely covered. It's beautiful inside, you understand? Externally, you've got stone for structure. Inside, you have very beautiful, durable wood for the appeal, okay?
And the oracle he prepared in the house within to set there the ark of the covenant of the Lord. And the oracle in the forepart was 20 cubits in length, and 20 cubits in breadth, and 20 cubits in height thereof, and he overlaid it with pure gold, and so covered the altar, which was of cedar.
Now, something that we didn't mention that we need to mention is this covering, the cedar, the interior of this temple. This is ornamentally carved cedar, to where it's not just that it's just covered with a board, but this is very ornamental, okay? And this is where the Ark of the Covenant is going to rest. So the inner sanctuary being 30 feet long and 30 feet wide, square, okay, and 30 feet high, so that would be cubed, right? And it was overlaid with pure gold. Have you ever seen a room of pure gold? That's what I said. I can't imagine. I can read it, but I can't visualize that. Here you have all this ornamental wood, this durable wood, beautiful wood, and then you overlay all that with gold, real gold, okay? I said the Lord is extravagant, but not wasteful. He's going to be there. So he deserves the best, right? Yeah, think about it.
It's amazing to me how we're reading here, and these details can be laborious to read through because they're hard for us to imagine. But as we've been going through this, I was thinking about how detailed the Lord is on the places where he chooses to put his name. You think about all the detail that we read about with the tabernacle in Exodus. Specific measurements were given. And then the detail here with the tabernacle. And wait until we get to Ezekiel with the tabernacle that will be built. You talk about some specific details. And then you go in the Revelation. It's mind-boggling to me, but I can't help but think how the Lord cares about his house. And sometimes we can just overlook things and think that God doesn't care about the fine details. But I know that he does. And I also know that he knows. Things happen within churches, and I dare say that there are many that would think God doesn't know or he's not paying attention to that, and I would disagree wholeheartedly.
I want you to think about this. We're talking about the place where God's going to abide, right? This is Old Covenant,
right?
Okay? And how elaborate this place is and how specific the details are. If I'm going to live in that place, then I want everything like I want it. In the New Testament, we are called the temple of God. God has specifics. God has details. And things are to be done by his design, you understand, because he's still looking for an elaborate place in which to dwell, which is the spirit of man. And so when you get a born again spirit, one where the Spirit of God is in, the nature of God is in, then you have a very beautiful place for the abode of God, God himself, right? Now, I want to go back to the gold in that temple. See, most of the gold, like if you have a ring on, I dare say it's probably not pure. It may be 14 karat, 10 karat, but pure would be what we would call a 24 karat, right? Others alloyed with something else. This says this was pure gold. It's not alloyed with any other material, right? Now, what does that tell me? That God is not wanting anything mixed with his temple. He's wanted it to be pure. He's wanted it to be valuable. And that's how he views you. He's not wanting you to hold hands with the world. He's not wanting you diluted, so to speak, or contaminated. But he's looking for a pure, unblemished bride, isn't he?
Yeah. Verse 21. So Solomon overlaid the house within with pure gold, and he made a partition by the chains of gold before the oracle, and he overlaid it with gold.
Now, I've tried to picture this, and I can't wrap my mind around it right now, okay? How the inside of this temple is overlaid with pure gold, and the inner sanctuary, which would be the Holy of Holies, is divided from the temple sanctuary by gold chains. Now, I don't know exactly how that was. Not beads, but gold chains. All I know is it's elaborate. Okay.
And the whole house he overlaid with gold until he had finished all the house. Also the whole altar that was by the oracle he overlaid with gold.
So the entire temple. Now, when we say temple, we're not talking about temple complex, but we're talking about the holy place and the Holy of Holies. Okay. So in the interior of that holy place and that Holy of Holies, the entire part was pure gold, including the altar that was in the sanctuary, the inner sanctuary. And would assume that's the altar of incense, right? Golden altar of incense.
And within the oracle he made 2 cherubims of olive tree, each 10 cubits high.
So, 2 cherubim from olive wood, okay, 15 feet tall. Pretty significant figure, isn't it? And these 2 cherubim were placed inside the Holy of Holies. Remember how the cherubim was forged into the lid that went on the box that we call Ark of the Covenant? How those cherubim covered the mercy seat, as it's often called. Now these are evidently freestanding cherub, 15 feet tall, made of olive wood and placed in this inner sanctuary. And where do you get the wing spread?
Yeah. And 5 cubits was the one wing of the cherub, and 5 cubits the other wing of the cherub. From the uttermost part of the one wing unto the uttermost part of the outer were 10 cubits.
So from the middle down here, if you're talking about 7.5 feet, 7.5 feet, you have a 15-foot wing spread from the tip of one wing to the tip of the other wing, and the cherub were identical.
And the other cherub was 10 cubits. Both the cherubims were of one measure and one size.
Identical.
The height of the one cherub was 10 cubits, and so was it of the other cherub.
So these are put in the inner sanctuary. Go ahead, did you read 27?
No, sir.
Let's read 27.
And he set the cherubims within the inner house, and they stretched forth the wings of the cherubims, so that the wing of one touched the one wall, and the wing of the other cherubim touched the other wall, and their wings touched one another in the midst of the house.
So think about this. The wings are touching, how wide was the room? 30 feet? 15-foot wingspread, 15-foot wingspread. Makes up 30 feet. Wings are tip to tip, touching the walls on either side. Now, our time's up here. We're going to have to take a break, but I want to come back, and I want us to look at 1 Kings chapter 6 and verse 28 when we come back.
We're not recording, right? Don't y'all think it's interesting?